Right, it's about 84 days left to the next general election on the 9th of August 2020. And tonight, we dig from our very rich archives to put to context what has happened in the last few days. A few months ago, we said the choice of running mate will be a make or break affair for all the contenders. A career-building decision of vanquishing one, and the choice was theirs. That decision has now been made, and the campaigns proper are about to begin. It's down to the wire, and the stage is set for what pundits call the mother of all election battles. Kenyans now have a clear choice between the two candidates. The Deputy President William Ruto and his mayor candidate Raila Odinga both went for Mount Kenya. One, however, went for a man, the other a woman. A unique combination never seen before in this country in the last 7 multi-party elections, making him the second presidential candidate in this election to pick a woman after Professor George Wajakoya. But Raila Odinga is the foremost runner in this election to make that decision. The impact of these choices is immense, and the weight they carry cannot be underestimated. So where do we go from here, and how will the campaign shape up ahead of the voting on August 9th? Tonight we speak to Elisha Odhiambo, Stephen Mule and Wilson Sossion, all practicing politicians in the 12th Parliament. Jerotich Sei, who describes herself as an active citizen, and Erima Wako Ojiwa, the Executive Director of Siasa Place. Remember, the women have a front seat in this election. Good evening and welcome to the extended version of KIVUMBI2022 at Ken Mijungu across all social media platforms. And on the show tonight, we will be speaking to Governor Professor Kivutha Kibwana, and of course Willie Sotieno. My colleague Eric Latif is on the other side. He will be speaking to them shortly. Look out for all our top stories at 8:30, and of course at 9 p.m. I'll be back right here with the top stories making your headlines today. But first, over to you, Eric.
Well, thank you very much, Ken, and good evening. Welcome to KIVUMBI2022. This hour, we want to have a conversation about the running mates. We've been having a very busy week and also a very dramatic weekend. If you look at the events of Saturday into Sunday into Monday, you know what we've seen coming out of the news with the Kenya Kwanza presidential candidate William Ruto announcing his running mate, and then today the Azimio presidential candidate Raila Odinga also publicly unveiling his running mate. Other presidential candidates are also expected to have been, nominating their running mates. They have until midnight tonight to present those names to the IEBC. What's the impact of a running mate to a presidential candidate's campaign? That is the conversation we want to have. Joining me at the round table is Willie Sotieno, who is the Chief Counsel for the Safina presidential candidate, and this is Jimmy Wenjege. Willis, thank you very much for joining us. As well as Governor Kivutha Kibwana, who everybody knows is in the Azimio, it's called the Azimio La Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party. It's a long one, always confuses me. Thank you for joining us, Governor.
Thank you.
We'll start with you because the news is from your presidential candidate. Raila Odinga going with Martha Karua, hitting the headlines across the country on the choice of candidates, also knowing the run-up to this. Various steps had been taken. There was the formation of the panel of eminent personalities. There was the invitation by the panel for political parties to nominate people. Then there was the interview process. And then there was this whole wait. And today, as this was happening at KICC, one of the principals of the Azimio is also holding a separate press conference at the Kalonzo Musyoka Center, where he says, I'm not happy with the decision, I'm going a separate route. Must have been dramatic.
I think it was indeed very dramatic, principally because Honorable Raila Odinga, the presidential candidate for Azimio, in my view, made a historic and important decision, not simply by nominating Martha because she's a woman, but because she's very capable. She has reform credentials. She has a history of working hard for this country. And as I sat there witnessing this moment, I said to myself, history is very stubborn because it always speaks to the future. Raila Odinga and Mother Karua and others have been fighting for change in this country. And today I felt that as our country goes forward, that change is vindicated in terms of the people now whom we expect to take our country forward. Both of them have scars of the struggle. And now, fate and destiny has placed them to a situation where they will take the reform agenda, the change agenda forward. And I think it is really a pair that is God sent to take our country forward. So it was historic in that sense, and no wonder the President of Tanzania, I think also the Vice President of the United States of America, among people who have congratulated Mother for being chosen. Of course, there's that other downside that you mentioned about Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka saying that he's not happy with the decision. And he subjected himself, of course, to the entire process. And this is a process that happens in democracies, like in the States. They always have talent searches. A presidential candidate asks for experts to identify a suitable vice president in their situation. So after going through the entire process, he made a personal decision for the time being to opt out of the Azimio train. But I would imagine the offer is still valid, so that if in the future, in the very immediate future, he decides that he wants to play from the Azimio field, I think that offer is valid. It was a substantial offer from what I've made to understand, of course, being a chief minister, sharing part of the government, and people from his community were also saying that what is also critical is the promise of what development dividend will come to the county. So I expect, I hope that he will reconsider his decision. He will come back home to Azimio, and the country will benefit from his experience, and more so, the community where he comes from will benefit from being part and parcel of the new government.
I'm going to come back to you on the issue of Kalonzo Musyoka and the impact of this withdrawal from Azimio that would have, even in your own region of Ukambani. I mean, you're one of the political leaders of this region. What that means, whether you've had any conversations, and you'll tell us about that. But just to set some records straight, from what we've seen, Governor, yes, we've seen on social media, there have been, forwards going around that President Samia Suluhu Hassan of Tanzania and Vice President Kamala Harris of the US have tweeted congratulating Martha Karua. But from their actual tweets, from their own Twitter handles, that isn't the case. So from what we see, it's not that they have actually sent those congratulatory messages on Twitter, as has been going on social media, but everybody falls for these things. That's the folly of social media at present. We'll come back to that conversation. Willis, you are the chief counsel for the Safina presidential candidate, Jimmy Wanjege. We have seen the others. They have unveiled their running mates. Who's your running mate?
That's a very good question. One thing that you must note from today's announcement is that the candidates were speaking to who they are. Raila Odinga is a hero of the second liberation, the struggle for political rights in this country. And his choice of deputy is also a fighter for the same right that Raila fought for. I don't have much to say about William Ruto's choice of running mate, but I believe the running mates are a reflection of who these candidates are. So for Safina political party, Jimmy Wanjigi will unveil his running mate in due course. He's made the deadline for submission of the name. And that running mate will be somebody who reflects what the campaign stands for. And that campaign stands for an Itwika moment. Itwika moment to mean a new generation of leaders, new leaders coming into the fore to champion our next cause. Raila has defined, and his campaign have defined, this election through choice of his running mate, that it is about the political rights. On our end as Safina, we've defined that the next election is about the economic rights of the people of Kenya. How do we now move beyond the political rights to start empowering our people economically? Kenyans are not fighting today for the space to express themselves. Kenyans are fighting to be able to put food on their table. They are fighting to be able to access affordable health care. They are fighting to be able to get jobs for the millions of Kenyans who are unemployed. It is surprising that if you look at the statistics, government-owned statistics, 11.2 million Kenyans who are graduates from universities, TVETs, polytechnics, and diploma holders are unemployed. We are saying that the new dispensation should address this rising cost of living and the almost hopeless situation of employment in this country. So when Mr. Wanjigi will unveil his running mate, it will be somebody who believes in that. 73% of our population are youth. Government must reflect the face of its people. When you elect octogenarians, so to speak, people who are, and with all due respect, they've earned their space in this country, it speaks to you have left out a significant portion of our people from government. So the Wanjigi presidential team, when they unveil their candidate, it will be somebody who reflects the face. Government must be the face of its people.
Okay.
Who is youthful and has youthful ideas that addresses the problems of today. I celebrate Governor and my law teacher for their struggle, which they led to be even enable us to sit today to discuss political processes. That is what Raila Odinga also represents. They fought for us to enjoy this political democratic space.
To get to where we are.
To get to where we are. Now, the conversation is going to shift to about empowering our people economically.
Why is Jimmy Wanjigi running mate still a secret?
It's not a secret. It's not a secret. We
You're
just
handing
felt...
him over to a public office
No.
in, what, 2.5 hours?
Well,
3
no.
hours?
It's not a secret. What happens
You
is
already
this.
told us
Today,
it's a youthful person, somebody who's reflecting
maybe I should put it
Just give us a
clearly.
name.
Let me tell you who. The conversation is very straightforward. The political rights are having their day today. And it's good that you don't even you pollute, overpopulate the news cycle. So that we discuss the running mates who have been chosen. When Rigathi was announced, he had his whole day to be announced, and Kenyans have returned a verdict on the kind of a person he is. Today was Martha Karua's day. Let her be discussed. We understand very strong reform credentials on political rights. Then when Safina, which is campaigning on economic empowerment, unveils, let us also discuss that person on that day in terms of their socio-economic background, so that Kenyans are given a fair opportunity to debate and agree which of these three represents what we see as our future.
So Jimmy Wanjigi is holding on to have his own day when he announces his running mate, and also he gets his own moment in the news cycle.
Not his own moment. He's simply saying...
Wajakoya got his day.
What we are simply
Ruto
saying...
got his
What we are
day.
simply saying
Raila is
that
getting his day.
Today
Jimmy
the
Wanjigi
conversation...
is claiming his
No,
day.
he's not claiming. He's simply saying the conversation today was on political rights. We believe the conversation should be about economic empowerment. How do we empower our people? So that when we unveil, question the socio-economic journey of this candidate, Mr. Jimmy Wanjigi himself and his running mate. What have they done in terms of socio-economic empowerment of our people? And that is why we say, let's finish the political conversation, then we go to the real issue. The real issue is our people are enjoying political rights, courtesy of Professor Honorable Raila Odinga, Honorable Martha Karua. We enjoy and we celebrate them. But our problems today are economic challenges. We want to have a day to discuss that which matters to the voter.
Sounds like you acknowledge that Honorable Raila Odinga and the running mate that he unveiled today are a formidable force.
Of course, I can't take that away from them. They have earned their space in history. They've actually the heroes, with Professor sitting here. These are heroes of the second liberation. Some of them paid with their lives. Raila lives today with the scars of that struggle. He said it in public. He can't barely see. When his eyes tear, it's because he was fighting for me to be able to sit here today and speak as I am. But you're simply saying, so today was his day to be discussed with his running mate, who also interestingly, shares the same struggle as Raila Odinga. They are all heroes of the second liberation.
I'm struggling.
And we celebrate them.
Governor, do you get the logic?
Let me say this. Of course, Willis is trying to pigeonhole Raila and Mother to be about, and myself, I would imagine, to be about political rights. And he's saying that there is needed a new renaissance of focusing on economic rights. But first of all, let me say this. When you have political rights, when you have freedom in a country, you must be eternally vigilant, because you can lose those rights in the twinkling of an eye if you get the wrong people to be in charge of a country. And we have seen that not only in Africa, we saw in America under Trump. There was even an attempt to ensure that, you know, political rights and the freedom, the liberty Americans are so proud of was kind of diminished. And you can speak about, you know, other places. Raila, when he worked with Kibaki in the Grand Coalition government as a prime minister, he was responsible for that reawakening of our country after the Kanu era. And in terms of helping the president to come up with Vision 2030, to come up with the economic liberalization of the country, and to really partner with President Kibaki to make Kenya different economically. You can't take away that from Raila. You can't take away from Raila that even in terms of the infrastructure that is going on, Raila was part and parcel of that. Martha, as a Minister for Water, not even Constitutional Affairs and Justice, as a Minister of Water, the water law, the water policy, the water reforms came from Martha, and that is what was continued by Ngilu, by Sicily, up to now. If I can go back to the Constitution, and both of us are students of the Constitution with Willis, the Constitution itself, the 2010 Constitution, was one of the constitutions on the continent which decided that there would be political rights in it, there would be economic rights on it, even things about environment, about consumer protection, about the role of the youth, women, older people, and all that. And Raila and Martha were principal actors in the birth of that constitution. And I was also a part of it as you know, and other young people actually even lost their lives to fight for that constitution. So if somebody who wants rights, economic rights, socioeconomic rights, you know, equality of the genders to be entrenched in the constitution, you cannot say that they're just about political rights, important as those political
so there's a mix.
Rights are, let me finish. One would of course want to ask of Wanjigi, what is his history in terms of leading Kenya politically? Because you can't just parachute from somewhere and be a president. We must ask ourselves, well, even if you argue that you will promote economic rights, what is the evidence of that, especially in the public sector? We know that he's been in the private sector. We know that he has helped, you know, campaigns and all that, and we are not denying him that. You can't deny him that. You can't deny anybody who is competing, you know, their political space to do so. In Makueni, as a governor, after having, you know, been part of the constitution-making process and knowing that that constitution through devolution has a lot of potential, we have done things to economically empower ordinary people, so that the fact that we have a history of agitating for political rights does not mean that when it comes to practice, we don't translate that political space.
I think what I'm hearing from both campaigns, and even from, let's say, the William Ruto campaign, and we had sent invitations for the William Ruto campaign to be present. Unfortunately, they were not able to make it. But even the William Ruto campaign has been having a conversation around the economy. The bottoms-up conversation, not the bottom-up conversation, plus everything else, you know, having a fund to support the youth in entrepreneurship, to support the women in entrepreneurship. It's all about the economy and whatever formula they're using to get there. So everybody here is trying to claim a stake in the economic conversation of the country. The question, though, is as we come back to the topic for tonight, the choice of the running mates. Is the choice of the running mate helping the candidate to advance this conversation, as you're claiming? Is the choice of the running mate going to help a candidate win more votes because of their pedigree and because of the way they relate and engage with the voter? Is your choice, Willis?
Let me say this. First, I want to comment about what Governor said. With tremendous respect to Raila Odinga and Governor and Honorable Karua, they fought, and their fight was codified in the Constitution of Kenya 2010, which granted us those rights. They are the experts of political rights. That we can't take away from. And I will wish they own it proudly as a badge of honor to the nation. The country celebrates them for that fight. We are now saying we've secured our political rights in the Constitution. In fact, one of the amendment clauses of the Constitution which requires a referendum is the Bill of Rights. That is their struggle. They've delivered on it. The struggle that we are now going into, and I do believe that even with President Uhuru, he's tried to claw back, his administration with Ruto has tried to claw back on some of those rights. But they were not able to because of the work which Raila Odinga and Governor Kibwana did to codify those fundamental rights and create certain institutions in the Constitution to make them germane. Now, going forward, and I've said, look at the choice of running mate. If we are all agreed that the issue is economic, does the choice of your candidate address that question? I did notice, it's fortunate that they're not here, when Honorable Rigathi was chosen as a deputy for William Ruto, the first thing that came up was that he has all these many corruption cases pending in court. Is that his economic understanding of a new dispensation? If you ask the Raila campaign about the choice of deputy on her economic standing, she has a stellar curriculum vitae on political rights, but very thin on economic rights, economic empowerment. Not even economic empowerment. The right is there already. We are now talking about making that right actual. Governor did ask that Honorable Wanjigi cannot just fly from out. There is no experience in public service. But the experience which the other campaigns have in public service, 30 years experience. In fact, if you take both of them, the experience cumulatively in public service is 60 years. If I use 1992 as the basis, if I add their deputies, it comes to almost 90 years experience in public service. But that experience has brought us to where we are today. That the country is poorer, we have more debt than we ever had in the history of this nation. Our healthcare is in a deplorable state than ever before. Even when Moi Nyayo was in power, we were never in the situation where we are in today. So if they say they have experience, we have a duty to ask, what has that experience led us to? If the experience had given us the best economy in the continent, we will say, then wait a minute. The experience counts for economic revival of this country. But if that experience has led us to a point where out of every 100 Kenya shillings collected by Kenya Revenue Authority, 75 shillings goes to debt, then I do believe that experience should not count for the new dispensation. The experience which we are bringing, that's why we are saying, as a campaign, Jimmy Wanjigi campaign, we are saying it's an Itrika moment. We must break away from this experience.
And start with zero experience.
Because that experience has brought us only pain.
Are you saying,
and I'll say this.
Are you saying,
what
Willis,
do we lose?
Hold on.
Okay, Rick.
Are you saying that that experience should not matter? We should therefore start with zero experience.
No, I am saying
and
that
hope for the best.
Experience has led us to where we are today. And going forward, ask everybody on the table, what is their economic proposal informed by their experiences? William Ruto says bottoms up. I'll give Mama Mboga 10 billion Kenya shillings. I'll give Boda Boda 100 billion. Raila Odinga has made a proposal, publicly so. I will pay the vulnerable 6,000 shillings per month. The summation of the experience is this. Our problem as a country is distribution. They think the money exists, that Uhuru just doesn't know how to distribute it. As Jimmy Wanjigi campaign, we are saying, our problem is not distribution. Our problem is production. How do you bake a bigger cake? How do you expand the revenue base of the country? How do you innovate to provide more jobs to Kenyans?
So you're telling us...
let me just finish. How do you expand the industrial base of this country? How do you go into the agricultural sector and do value addition? These are things which have been done by the private sector with limited and, to an extent, almost zero support. I did a project.
So we shall not
look
at Jimmy Wanjigi's public experience. We shall look at Jimmy Wanjigi's private experience in baking the cake.
Yes.
We shall also look at Jimmy Wanjigi's running mates experience.
Yes.
Does the running mate have public experience? Yes or no?
I have. In terms of the running mate, that is the prerogative of the candidate to unveil.
Does the running mate have public experience? Yes or no?
Consistent with what I have said. The campaign believes it is a breakup point. So we cannot choose. Let me just finish. We cannot choose. We will not choose from those whose experience in the last 30 years have brought us to the economic problem we are in today. And if we all agree as a people that we are facing an economic apocalypse, then we must make a conscious decision to start interrogating what proposals each campaign is making forward to address this economic problem. I do believe, where I sit, that the two campaigns' proposal have been about distribution. Our campaign's proposal has been about value addition, production. How do we expand the revenue base? How do we empower our people? Then having done that, it will be consistent for me now to say that we will not draw from the same pool of politicians whose 30 years experience has brought us the pain we are in today.
He calls it pain. You're talking about a 12 trillion shilling economy, having grown from 3 point something in about 9 years. You're talking about a country that has experienced devolution and the kind of development that we are seeing in the counties. Your example of Makueni County is one. Is this an apocalypse moment?
Well, I really think Willis is probably describing from an academic point of view of somebody else, not his presidential candidate. Because in terms of the economic, what we can do in terms of making the economy better, I gave examples of, Raila and Martha with Kibaki. And when Kibaki passed on, somebody, the country really respected. Part of getting the economy from the doldrums that Willis is describing, they were key actors. Even in this era of devolution, governors have really tried very hard to work on that economy. And Raila himself is known to be a champion of devolution, and we know that under him, devolution will do much better. So I think you are describing a false dichotomy of politics and economy, because both of them must feed into each other. You cannot, without good politics, you cannot have good economy. And that was my Shambayas, Shambaya, and whatever. So he's trying to create a niche for his candidate, and it's a false niche because it's a false niche because if you look at what Raila has said, and he keeps on, talking for many minutes in political rallies about the, the healthcare, about even like the Juakali, the very bottom, in a very practical way of what do you do? People who have got a lot of experience, but they didn't have certificates, how you rehabilitate them so that they can get to the market, they can be employed, all those young people. The fight for corruption. Because I believe if we examine carefully some of the candidates on the other side, we will find that they have really thrived in entrepreneurship, not really genuine private sector engagement. And people of that kind will not even bring the result, the economic result that we are discussing on this KIVUMBI table. So the Itwika, meaning generation change, so that leadership is taken from one group to the other. I think there is a genuine Itwika in terms of taking leadership from the old, you know, the old KANU principles, what Kenyatta was trying to also work on so that we move forward after Kibaki, to reformers, really. People will reform the economy, people will reform, politics further. People who will make sure that that constitution, which has the economic rights, which has the social rights, which has the cultural rights, environmental rights, labor rights, is implemented. Because if actually the constitution is implemented in this country, all those issues that Willis is talking about of the economy and so on will be realized. And finally,
we need to take a break. You will respond after the break. It's KIVUMBI2022. In the round table with me this evening is the Honorable Governor Rigathi from Makueni County. He is in Azimio. We're talking about the Azimio candidate and the newly unveiled running mate Martha Karua. And also we have Willis Otieno, who is the Chief Counsel for the Safina presidential candidate Jimmy Wenjege, with their still mysterious running mate. And we still want to know, I mean, you have until midnight, so you can tell us today if this is about Itwika, then just
we'll break
from
from the past.
Let's take a quick break. We'll be back shortly.